All right, the stream has hit the button.
All right. Hey, everybody. It's Thursday night. We're doing just an Ask Me Anything tonight. No mock draft, seeing how this goes. Just trying to get a feel for what works best and what you like the most. I haven't done one of these just Ask Me Anything sessions just at night, kind of as a standalone thing. Always done it with a mock. And so see if we get a little different vibe, or if you appreciate that, or if you like the mock, or if we can talk about it. Well, I'll definitely be talking about some drafts we've done. We are live now. Hey, everybody. It's Bob Harris, along with Emil Kadlec. Getting set up with the live chat here. Be happy to take your questions as always. In the chat of the site, it's Thursday, Ask Me Anything. It's just an Ask Me Anything this time. We're only doing questions, no mock draft. Just kind of want to see how this works out for everybody, what people approve. It's been kind of fun doing the mocks and kind of analyzing them as they go along and having discussion of other things. But tonight we'll just take your questions and hoping you have some. We have some other topics to discuss. I am Bob Harris, senior editor here at Football Diehards. He is Emil Kadlec, the publisher of said site and our great magazines there, the Fantasy Football Pro Forecast. 31st edition is available right now, as is the 20th anniversary edition of the Fantasy Football or the Football Diehards magazine, available at stores near you. I'm seeing them everywhere, getting lots of tweets and people from around the country. Also available at footballdiehards.com, where you can go right now, purchase them. You can check out the site if you're not familiar with what we do. You can go to footballdiehards.com/free trial and give it a test spin. Our August update draft guide, preseason info is up and running. Tons of content, news, rankings constantly updated. Plenty of fun stuff for you there. And if you already know how great it is and you decide you must have it, and you just haven't got there to buy it yet, go ahead and use the promo code Diehards to get a 15% discount on the already low price. And coming this season, when we get into the regular season, we'll be doing we have a new tool. Emil has put together a great piece of equipment that marries your rosters with our technology, our rankings, and all that kind of technology behind the scenes stuff we have. My Fantasy GM will connect up to all the major commissioner platforms, My Fantasy League, NFL, ESPN, Yahoo, Sleeper app, Emil. Who am I missing? Who are the big ones I'm missing?
Well, ESPN, NFL, Yahoo, CBS, My Fantasy League, Sleeper, and Flea Flicker, and hopefully we'll get real-time sports done in about a week and a half. We're still finalizing that.
Right. If you're like me, I'm in 20-plus redraft leagues this year, including Dynasty, and keeping track of free agents can be a bit of an issue. So pulling all these rosters, it assesses your rosters, assesses your opponent's rosters, the rest of your league, and helps you get a feel for what's going on, get the jump on people, gain an edge, lineup optimizers included, all that kind of fun stuff, all part of the season-long package, Football Diehards. So anyhow, we'll take some questions. Hi, Rob. How are you, man? Good to see you here. You're not asking questions. You're answering them, I think. No. Rob Wozniak in the Pro Forecast magazine this year, top ranker. So I guess there's some stories today, and something that I thought was just kind of interesting in a draft that we did yesterday for SiriusXM Fantasy Sports Radio, a host draft. So yesterday, Miles Sanders got hurt, or the reports came out that he was hurt week to week with a lower body injury, kind of very vague about it. The week to week is a bit of a worry. And so what impact does that have on drafts the day that happens? Well, I got Miles Sanders in the second pick of the second round, 14th overall in a half-point PPR. I'm pretty sure he would have gone higher had we not had that news that he was hurt. So, and then today we get news that Tyreek Hill dealing with a hamstring, Melvin Gordon dealing with hurt ribs, all these things, Emil. What do you do when you hear this kind of news? I kind of dive in. I want to leverage this. I mean, there's still some unknowns, some uncertainty. None of these things sound bad, but people usually just see the headline, right? Or they see the alert in their phone, and they don't dig that much deeper, and so they're just kind of have a negative connotation when something minor happens.
Yeah, you get that impulse response that, oh my gosh, this guy's hurt. Sometimes you got to read between the lines. Is he really that hurt? And so he drops, and you can take advantage of that. Of course, if you really think a guy's hurt, it's you got to be able to really be able to understand that news. In this case, I think you can take advantage. And like you got him. Did you say when you got him?
14th pick overall.
Yeah. See, that's pretty darn good. Who'd you get in the first round?
Michael Thomas with the 10th pick, which I thought was pretty good too. Half-point PPR. You guys will find a lot of running backs are going in the first round of drafts. There were 10 in this one. Michael Thomas went 12th. Devontae Adams, or 10th. Devontae Adams went 12th. So, and then I came back around. I think Josh Jacobs went, and Austin Eckler, Josh Jacobs, and then I got Miles Sanders. So
now,
leveraging.
Is this a PPR?
It's a half-point PPR.
Half a point.
Which to me, when I'm dealing with it, maybe it raises the value of a Derrick Henry, but it doesn't diminish the value. It's still a relative thing. Just like, I still have to start a wide receiver. Why not have the best one?
Yep. Especially with the 10th pick or 11th pick, whatever it was.
Yeah. And then come back around to get Miles Sanders, who we all think is going to have a super big role, assuming Devontae Freeman is kept hostage somewhere. We do have some questions, and we'll touch on these and some other topics throughout the course of the next hour, and hopefully we'll get a lot of questions from y'all. Stephen Lenahan wants to know, he's drafting fifth in a half-point PPR. Is Michael Thomas viable? Then how will the running backs be? And as we just said, running backs are going pretty fast in a half-point PPR. 5 is probably a little rich for my blood on Thomas, but it's not absurd. Again, he's the best player at his position. And there will be running backs in the next round. There will be better running backs in the first round. Emil?
Yeah, it's ironic. We were just talking about your draft, which was a half a point, and you got Thomas at 11.
10.
Yeah, you've got to look at what you're going to get coming around. You're the 5th pick. Oh, my God, it's a 16-team league. Woo! You may want to go on our configurable cheat sheet on the website and put in 16 and half a point. I don't know how many starters, and kind of see what it tells you. I'm looking at it right now. I don't have your complete scoring. I have. I'll go in here and just kind of see what it does with. Now, this is a half. I got to do a half.
Yeah, that's the next question, actually. So he's in a. I'm guessing he's in a 12 or maybe even a 10, depending on what you're in, Steven. That will play a little bit of a difference. If you're in a 10, much better. If you're in a 12, it's going to be a little. You're still going to get a solid running back, but they're going to go fast in the first round, especially in a half point. So we'll move on to that one you're looking at, Emil. And Kevin.
Yeah, ironically, at the half a point was 16. It puts Michael Thomas as the 4th overall pick. I haven't mentally absorbed that, but it's doing all the values and calculations. So that's saying that your 5th pick, that's saying it accepts that. It thinks that's a good pick for Michael as the 5th pick in that 16-teamer.
Yeah, that was not a 16 team, but we'll look at the next one here.
Oh, it's the next one. Okay, sorry.
Yeah. Half PPR there also James Conner in round 13 or Hunter Henry in round 12 as the keeper. I'd probably, in a 16-team league, I'd probably keep the James Conner in round 13. That would be a pretty easy call for me. I might even do that in the 12-team as well.
That makes sense to me.
Full PPR, first pick. Is the work going Lamar Jackson or Mahomes at the 2-3 turn? Add a wide receiver or another running back. If you take a quarterback, I think that's the ideal time to take one of those guys. If I feel really comfortable doing that. If you have that, get that first pick overall, get your Christian McCaffrey, or if you like somebody else, go ahead. Then come back around, and at the 2-3 turn, whether you take them 2 or 3, I think that's an ideal. That's where I've had the most, or I felt the best about getting either of those quarterbacks who are going pretty much that early if they make it back to you. Emil, do you see it any other way? Or
yeah, that's a pretty good way to go. Hopefully one of them will still be there. Should be, depending on different things and different people. But, yeah, that's a good spot. And like you said, get a running back or a receiver. I guess you could consider a tight end depending on what's going on in that league, but hopefully not. Hopefully you can take a receiver or running back and then see what's available in the bottom of the 4th or the beginning of the 5th. You may be able to get a quality tight end there if you want to do that. Because you're already taking a quarterback early. If you take a tight end relatively early, you've got to really be able to get some receivers and running backs later that you trust. So you got to plan that out.
Yeah, I've kind of at the point where I feel like I get great value at wide receiver later, especially if I get a high, like in this draft I was talking about where I got Michael Thomas first overall. I think I didn't draft another wide receiver until round 6 or 7. I think it was round 7.
Wow.
3 running backs after I went Thomas. I got Sanders, Connor, David Johnson. Then I went Mark Andrews in the 5th round. And then I went Dak Prescott in the 6th round. Again, I've kind of been doing this a lot. There seem to be quarterbacks throughout the course of a draft where I get to a point I don't love everybody or love anybody. I'm okay drafting a quarterback. And then I came back since I had Michael Thomas. I went Will Fuller. I took a bunch of high upside guys that, have some risk involved, but you have that high floor with Thomas. So the roster construction kind of worked out for me.
Well,
I like
Dak Prescott in the 6th round. That's pretty darn good. And getting 4 as your second.
I think I started. He was the 3rd quarterback off the board in that draft. Anyhow, I'd be interested to hear if Rob Wozniak sees that kind of approach with the waiting on running backs. If he sees a lot of value at wide receiver later in the draft, when you see like getting the 6th round and you're seeing the possibilities of AJ Green, Marquise Brown, Devontae Adams, kind of just all sitting there staring you in the face, and Will Fuller later. Granted, there are risks associated with all these guys, but for the price, it doesn't seem out of line. Let's see. On Brady's bye week, week 13, who would you want? Cousins against Jacksonville or Rivers against Houston? You're getting out a little far on this one, Brian Larkin, but good to plan ahead. Without knowing what some of the circumstances are going to be, I mean, they're both favorable matchups. My guess is they're both teams probably are going to be run heavy, both offenses. Rob.
Are you talking about Brady's bye week?
Brady's bye week is 13. So Cousins is against Jacksonville and Rivers is against Houston.
Yeah, if you go to the tools section under streaming quarterbacks, it shows you all the options of who would be a good quarterback for the bye week. The top is Ryan Tannehill.
So if he was looking at Cousins or Rivers, who would it like?
Cousins is down a little bit. It doesn't show Rivers, so I guess Cousins. It's Tannehill, Breeze, Rodgers, Roethlisberger, then Stafford, and then Cousins.
Yeah, and just Rob chimed in on that. He's kind of with me. The value definitely falls at wide receiver later. I'm feel the drafts I feel the most comfortable with. I hammer the running back early. Even if I, maybe got one wide receiver early, or I tend to go tight end early if one of the guys I like are available. And that's the reason why. And that's why I'm comfortable going quarterback at any range. I say at any range, but if you look at, the list of quarterbacks right now at ADPs, there are guys going at whether you want to go early with the Mahomes, you want to go a little bit early like I did with Dak Prescott, Russell Wilson, Kyler Murray, Deshaun Watson, all in that range. You want to wait another round or two, go Drew Brees, Matt Ryan, Brady, Josh Allen, Carson Wentz. You want to wait till closer to double-digit rounds and get Matt Stafford, Daniel Jones. You want to wait even later and get in on a Kirk Cousins or a Ryan Tannehill, people, is the 20th quarterback off the board. There's at any point in the draft where I say, I don't like anybody. I say, there's a quarterback I like. And so that's been it's worked out pretty well. But whatever the case, getting those running backs set early, taking advantage of the value of wide receiver later seems to be a pretty good approach for me. And tight ends, Emil, I know you and I both like the early tight ends, but there's that middle range of tight end. Yeah, Rob, a lot of people, Rob, in the industry, as he points out, rarely taking before 8 or 9. And I get that too. And ideally, that's how long I'm waiting. But it just seems this year I'm not seeing like wide receivers. The value just seems to be later. So I'm okay pivoting at quarterback. There's Justin Lanero in the room. So that's one thing. On the tight ends, though, I feel like we get to the, get outside that top tier. I include Mark Andrews there. Zach Ertz, 5th round, seems to be like a really good price for him right now. But after that, you get through that range of the Darren Waller, Hunter Henry. Darren Waller threw Hunter Henry. And I'm just not that. I don't find it that appealing. I'd rather wait till later, get the ups, or take some potential upside guys and get them much later. So, what do you think about that approach, Emil?
Yeah, again, you've once you get past the first few, I like Higbee, and we've seen him go from anywhere he usually goes from the bottom of the sixth, and we've seen drafts where he goes like the 10th, which is insane. And so if you got a guy you like, if you've got to find your sleepers, your value picks. Sometimes you don't. If you got 6 tight ends after the top 4-ish that are all the same in your mind after you've done your analysis, why not wait and get the 10th guy instead of the 6th guy or the 4th guy? Or if you don't have it, if you got somebody that you really like that's down there around 7, 8, 9, 10 at tight end, then you can key on that and watch how the draft flows and then try and take him, before he goes at the very last moment.
Justin talks about loving us some Darren Waller, though. We do love him, but I don't love him at 6th round right now. And the question before that, any rookie or second-year tight end you think makes it starting status, he could draft 13th round or later. Yeah, there's a ton of them this year, right? I mean, and that's the thing. I know Mike Gesicki is not a second year, but T.J. Hawkinson, Mike Gesicki, there are a handful of guys. And look, you went and wait till late and get a Blake, Jack Doyle's a guy that I love getting really late.
Just going to mention Jack Doyle, who you can get so late and didn't have a great year last year, but Ebron's gone. You got Rivers there, the buildup of the offensive line. Doyle could be huge, and I'll go check his ADP. It's like infinity or something close to it.
Tight end off the board.
I'm sorry?
And I think the 19th tight end off the board.
Yeah.
And if you look, over the Colts have been one of the most tight end heavy passing attacks in the NFL since Frank Reich got there. Mike Clay, our buddy over at ESPN, notes that Reich's tight ends have enjoyed target shares of 23, 24, 31, 29, 27, and 29% during his 6 seasons as a coach, offensive coordinator, head coach. And for Doyle, he tied the team league in targets 20% share once Ebron was injured in week 12 last year. So for a guy in his position, I mean, if y'all scared of Trey Burton, I get it. And Phillip Rivers, by the way, likes to throw the tight end. So I'm shilling for a guy who you can have as like your 8th tight end if you want to draft like that.
If you're worried about it and you wait that long for that time, again, it's all about, you can't have every great player. You can't just go down and think you're going to get the first quarterback, the first running back, etc. You got to look for value plays in your draft a few times, if not more times. And that is an option with Doyle is you can wait way late, take these other players at other skill positions and get a Doyle. Maybe if you have a deep roster, you can take another tight end, or you're watching on week 1 or 2 real carefully because somebody's going to pop out that you can get on free agent.
We're kind of talking. They like Waller an awful lot. I'm just curious if there's any concerns that maybe the target share is going to suffer with the additional weapons. I guess that would be my only worry with him is do I get the same guy I had before? Are we drafting, last year's numbers and maybe going to miss out on some of that? So there's that. John Laub in the house. So we have a question from, let's see, Scott Mueller, 12-round PPR, pick number 12. He's ready to pick the best available running back or wide receiver for the 12th pick. Would he be crazy to go tight end for the 13th pick? Probably not crazy for me. Emil?
Yeah, 12. I don't know. I would wait. To get to the bottom of the third or fourth or whatever comes up, and see what shows up. And I'd be taking some receivers or running backs. Is personally what I would do. I have trouble taking that first tight end. I don't know why. It's just a lot to give up. But I would wait personally. But I can understand if you do it.
Yeah, Rob, by the way, thinks Ruggs and Edwards only help Waller. I mean, I keep thinking back to last year when John Gruden said the tight end is going to be the lifeblood of this offense. It kind of has been under him. I'm just still a little worried about the price, but certainly, targets last year were there. Maybe some positive touchdown regression for him. Didn't score a ton, so maybe he will this year. Thoughts on Matthew Stafford in a 12-team PPR? All touchdowns are 6 points, including passing touchdowns. I love Matthew Stafford where he's being drafted right now. And I have no problem. I mean, I'm fine selecting him. Maybe don't expect that torrid pace he started off with last year to hold up, but you're not paying for that torrid pace. He's a top 5 quarterback, and you're getting him in about round 10-ish. So That would even be a Wozniak approved pick.
Of course, with the 6 points per TD, the quarterbacks may shift up a little bit, but it's all relative. So, you're getting him as the 10th, 11th, 12th quarterback. Maybe 9th is where you'd have to take him. It's not bad.
Yeah, go ahead and reach up if that's what you like. Standard League, 10th pick, Chubb, Jacobs, Tyreek Hill, Julio, or Aaron Jones. I'm guessing he means Adam Jones is the guitar player for Tool. He's very awesome, but not very good at football. Emil?
Yeah, let's see. 10th pick. Well, all those guys are great. I'm not sure if I got somebody better. I would probably, Tyreek is probably somebody I'd look at.
Yeah, I can see that a little bit. I'm probably leaning to Jacobs there, but it's, that's a tight grouping. Probably Julio at the bottom end and Jones on the bottom end of that for me. A lot of talk about Chubb sharing with Kareem Hunt, and he probably is. Talked to Aditi Kinkhamwala from NFL Network today. She talked about the situation. She's really high on Chubb, but also says Kareem Hunt looks great and we'll see plenty of usage. She's talking about the same things you've heard other people report. He'll see time in the slot, etc. So there you have it. I mean, for me, Jacob just seems like, you look at last year, I think he would play 13 games, had the 13th most touches, carries, and still, broke a ton of tackles, had the most or second most broken tackles, even not getting the most carries. So I just think he's in a good position, good workload, not sharing like Chubb will be. Otherwise, I'd love Chubb if he was the only guy there, but it's Jacobs for me, especially in a non-PPR.
Yeah.
All right, Graham would like to know, second in a 10-team 0.5 PPR. If he starts Barkley tight end, he might want to grab a wide receiver 1 on the 2-3 turn. The choices would be Galladay, Godwin, A-Rob, OBJ. Would OBJ be a steal there? And how do we rank those wide receivers?
I would take ODBJ later. I think you can get him to Tad later.
Yeah, let's just look at current ADP and seeing what people would see what you can get away with.
Maybe even A-Rob you can get to the next round. Of course, you're at the end. It's a 10-team league, though.
Yeah, it's 10-team league makes it a little easier. And again, there's a lot of value at wide receiver. It goes even longer. If you're looking at current ADP, you're looking at Robinson would be going first. Odell Beckham would be going. Those would be the first two guys off. Or Godwin would be off. I'm sorry, Godwin would be off ahead of those guys. So if Godwin's sitting there, he would be the guy for me. We're kind of still waiting to see, who ends up having the chemistry with Tom Brady. Haven't heard a lot about Godwin. Hear a lot about Evans. Hear a lot about O.J. Howard. Heard a lot of things. Rob Wozniak says Godwin. I would go ahead and say that if we check my rankings right now, Galladay would be by far the top guy on that list based on my rankings. I was going off ADP. My rankings would be Galladay, Godwin. I have them 6 and 7 right now in my rankings. Those would be my two choices.
Those make a lot of sense to me.
Okay. Let's see what else we got there. And by the way, after those guys, I have A-Rob ahead of OBJ as well. And I think one of the reasons kind of is because he's going a little later. A lot of positive talk from Aditi Kinkhamwala about him as well. He looked really sharp and in practice today, but it was just today. So I don't know. We'll look for some more questions here as they come up. I was going to ask you about another situation, Emil. We're hearing the Clyde Edwards-Helaire playing fast, has incredible vision. Really hearing the good reporting. How much better can it get? I mean, is there going to be a point where he starts butting into that 103 as he starts bumping people out?
I just can't believe he'd get above the top 4. We need to see him. Hopefully we can see him somehow before we in our important drafts because, it's you hear the noise, but can you trust this guy on, third downs and protecting the quarterback with blocking before I would try and push him up to like the 4th or 5th or 6th in the first round. Of course, he's already about the 6th there anyway.
So we talked about this a lot. I'd like to hear what John Laub and Justin and Rob think about this as well. But, you know, we're always drafting guys. I mean, everyone you're drafting the first round, you're basically drafting at their anticipated ceiling, right? I mean, that's what we do. And we're doing the same thing with Edwards-Helaire. We just don't know. We haven't seen him do much of anything, but we know historically what the position is. So are we putting too much stock into that, guys? Justin, I know I know what you think, but go ahead and chime in. Anyway, and I'd like to hear what Laub and Rob have to say, too. Graham, a mock draft says they've all been gone by the end of the third. Okay. If I draft Chubb, says Scott Mueller, how early should I pick up Hunt as a handcuff? Earlier than I want to pay for a handcuff for me. I mean, that's, you know, if you're looking at current ADP, he's going fairly high and not without good reason. Emil, you know some of the numbers, right? I mean, if we talk about Hunt as a standalone.
Both he and Chubb were RB2s from week 10 to week 16 last year when Hunt came back. So that's a piece of data that you got to think about. It may change this year. If they're going to run more, maybe both of them move up. But what's the ADP on Hunt? I mean, yeah, you're going to – I mean, if you draft Chubb and then you go get Hunt in, I don't know, the 5th round, 6th round.
Yeah, it's 5th round right now.
You're going to be having to start him. I mean, he's a starter. So you're going to be starting 2 running backs on the same team. Maybe that works. Maybe that's okay. But that's what you're going to have to think about, and that you're going to have to do if you're going to draft Hunt at his ADP.
John Love chimes in. He is not buying Clyde Edwards-Helaire before the top 10 overall. He'd take Jonathan Taylor III. Not an unreasonable approach, John Love. The scholar speaks. 10-team, 24-round Superflex League, 6-point TD passes. Wow. How long do I wait for a QB? You don't. Would you go Mahomes, Jackson first, second? They would, you know, like in the leagues I'm in, the Superflex leagues. I'm trying to remember if my scoring in all of those is 6-point touchdowns. Either way, it's still fairly relative. I'm seeing those guys go maybe 3rd, 4th, 5th picks. Those top 2 quarterbacks. So I would not wait too long. Maybe the first pick overall is a little early. I think people are still taking McCaffrey in pretty much all the drafts I've been in. That would qualify in this type of league, but you know, look, it's not crazy, man. That's why they're making them super flex. I mean, there's a premium on quarterbacks, and that 6-point per TD pass is a little bit of a difference maker.
And again, it'll matter on how many starters you have. Do you have 2 running backs, 2 receivers, or 3 receivers? You got the flex. And did it say it's a PPR or not?
It is. It's 0.5 for running backs, 1 point for wide. I think I'm in a league just like this, and a tight end premium, 1.5 points PPR for tight ends.
Yeah.
So that changes it a little.
You know, that maybe make it where, you know, taking it, it'd be nice to wait a little bit, but it is a super flex. You hate to waste the first pick and not take CMC.
That sounds like Scott Fish pricing, basically.
It's calculus scoring system.
So, yeah, I mean, seeing quarterbacks go that early that draft, that's where they're going to go. So if you want to get one of those guys, you're probably going to have to bite there. Rob and Justin both think Edwards-Helaire is going up too early, but top 5 is in the range of his outcomes, and that is a true story because we've seen it before over and over.
That's a good point.
And Justin wants him to handcuff. If ever there was a handcuff, it's Kareem Hunt. Do you want to pay a 5th-round price for your handcuff? I mean, is it going to be a situation where you're trying to decide week to week which of those guys to start? I don't know. High floor for a Hunt last year. It was amazing in PPR. I was surprised every week how good he was.
Well, you're going to, you're going to have to start him a lot. If you can find a way to make it work, he's not really a handcuff. I don't call him a handcuff in the 5th round.
I think he's a standalone play, right? Yeah. I mean,
and it may work. It just may feel weird that you're starting 2 running backs on the Cleveland Browns offense. But it may work. It was good last year in the second half of the season.
All right, let's get on another hype train here. Cliff Kingsbury tells me that Chase Edmonds can be a starting running back in this league. And maybe he can. I don't know that he can do it in Arizona, and I don't know if Kingsbury will use him like that, but we're going to probably see some great interest. Now, this is maybe a handcuff situation, right? But I think if you look at Kenyon Drake's numbers, they suggest pretty much true feature back usage. If you look at let's see, he played 79% of the snaps once he took over for that final 8-game run. So that's a pretty heavy workload, handled 123. That's 85% of the 144 carries during that stretch. He had 35 of the 43 targets to the team's running backs. That's 81% during that stretch. I mean, that's a workhorse role. So, I mean, I'm not going to get overly excited about Chase Edmonds, but would you be chasing him? I mean, the price is right for a handcuff there to me.
Yeah, what is he, 10th, 11th round that you can get Edmonds? And, you know, the hype thing in the preseason, that's a great example of a coach just talking up a guy who maybe the guy's working hard in practice and he wants to give the guy some kudos. But it does refresh your mind. Drake hasn't really shown us something through a year or two where we can say, yeah, this guy is going to stay healthy. And if I can take an 11th pick and get his back, whether I believe what that coach is saying or not, it's certainly worth considering.
Yeah, it is. Like in best ball, Benjamin with my last round flyer. It was one of my many last round flyers that I'm willing to pull out of my hat like small rabbits. And I don't know what the hell he'll possibly do. But it's just interesting where we see the hype. Another hype story today that was fantastic. Rob Gronkowski says Tom Brady's arm strength is better than he's ever seen it. He's played with him for 10 years or so. Is Tom Brady's arm magically stronger now than it's ever been in Tampa Bay, Emil? Or are we buying the hype? Look, the ADP is pretty high for Tom Brady right now. I think he's going top 10, right? How do you feel about him? And I guess more importantly, we talked about Chris Godwin, talked about Mike Evans, talked about the tight ends. I mean, he's got to fuel a lot of fires. Can he do it?
Yeah, that's an excellent question. I don't necessarily think his arm is that better. I think that's some hype. But, the flip side of what you're saying is he's got all this talent. He may be the better play getting him as a 10th quarterback because, maybe he's not going to be able to supply those guys with. You got two receivers who are top 10 receivers. Maybe they're going to end up being a little lower than we think, but maybe Tom Brady's going to be ending up higher than we think with all that talent he's got there.
9th quarterback off the board is Brady. I think this is an interesting note. According to Pro Football Focus, a majority of Jameis Winston's completions last year came on throws that were between 10 and 20 yards downfield. Over the last 5 seasons, PFF's top-rated quarterback on those same throws is Tom Brady. Maybe we're overthinking this. He's got to throw it deep in the no-risk-it, no-biscuit offense.
Yeah, I tell you, I haven't taken Tom Brady yet in a draft, and I think I need to get some percentage of him. I think it's probably a smart move. For some reason, I haven't done it.
If you're just dialing in or tuning in or arriving at the YouTube, hit the subscribe button so you get notifications and whatnot. We'll be doing this every day, various times throughout the week. Monday, Wednesday, and Friday, we're doing it at 3 p.m. Eastern. On Tuesday and Thursday, we're doing it at 8 p.m. Eastern. We'll have mock drafts. We'll probably drag guys like John Lobb and Justin Lanero into those. Had Jersey Jen Ryan here earlier this week drafting with Emil, taking your questions, commenting on the draft. So tune in for all that. Watch your emails. If you're a subscriber to the site, we'll send out those notifications. But subscribe to the YouTube channel, and you'll get those notifications in your phone or your devices or whatnot. So anyhow, and subscribe to the website, by the way. Bryce Love all of a sudden is getting a little buzz here in Washington. His chances of being a true number 2 running back seem quite real. All of a sudden, Antonio Gibson right now is the first Washington running back off the board in ADP. I think 7th round last I checked. Maybe it's gone up because it's been skyrocketing. It's not a Clyde Edwards-Helaire leap, but it's a pretty damn big leap as soon as Darius Geis disappeared. Adrian Peterson still right around the double digits. Bryce Love, pretty much a freebie, 14th, 15th round, if memory serves me correct. Antonio Gibson is now at wide receiver, running back 36 and going in the 7th round. Adrian Peterson going well after that in the 10th round. Bryce Love looks like he's down 13th round. He's rising a little bit on this chatter.
48th running back taken. That's an excellent sleeper pick right there. 13th
is that more of a best ball thing, or is that more of a best ball play to you, or is that something you would do in redraft if maybe you were taking a flyer on a guy?
In an 18 round or a 20 round 12-team league, yeah, I would consider him. A 16 round 12-team league, he may not fit that short roster.
What about Antonio Gibson? I think it's, we're, again, drafting somebody sight unseen, doesn't have a huge body of rushing work, in college, but obviously a very good player, very good receiver, big, fast, a unique body type. There was some talk out of Washington today. I heard, what was the words out of Washington? It's hard to overstate how much Antonio Gibson is touching the ball. Seriously, the quarterbacks practically have him on speed dial, and he's getting lots of carries as well. So maybe the hype is justified, or are we buying too much into this?
It's just so little data. You got a rookie. It's the problem is his ADP keeps going up. Peterson, he could play the first few free weeks, and then all of a sudden one of these guys we're talking about could pop in there and start starting. It's all about, is it worth that number? Is it worth the rounds you're going to have to take him as he rockets up the chart? I have been letting him go. I've got other people that I care about, and then I can consider him. I don't get him because he's gone by the time I consider him.
Yeah, it's worth noting some of the other running backs in that range when you're picking, let's say the 7th round. Marlon Mack, Jordan Howard, Matt Breida going off just ahead of him, Tariq Cohen, Phillip Lindsay, and Tevin Coleman, Latavius Murray after him, Alexander Madison as well. So, look, he's not without some potential upside. This is a weird offseason, right? I would love to see him hit the field and see what kind of usage we're getting. But the reporting is pretty optimistic, and ADP is reflecting that. Not sure I want to pay for that guy on the talk, but if you want him, that's what you have to do. Brian Larkin has a question. And by the way, Lob loves the Drake Edmonds. Very good value. I agree with that. In a 10-team, 18-round standard non-PPR, 8 owners in upstate New York and 2 from Minnesota. When do you draft Zach Moss, one of the Minnesota owners? Earlier than you were about a week ago. The buzz keeps getting more positive on Zach Moss. I looked at him today, and I just checked to see where the ADP was. He's moved up to running back 43 in the 9th round. He was going well into the double digits a week ago. A lot of buzz, like even today, the team's website was talking about how good he looked good as a receiver. I know some reporting from The Athletic suggested he, looks like he's headed for a much bigger role. I also know a guy that I'm in a league with, Mike Shope, who covers the team on a daily basis for WGR at Buffalo, still said, this is almost 2 weeks ago, said that Zach Moss is the only Buffalo Bill he's drafting at their current price. I don't know if he's still drafting him because the current price is higher, but I'm guessing maybe he is. A lot of buzz there. So, look, I think that ADP is still pretty reasonable at this point, that 9th round. If you grab him maybe a half round sooner, that wouldn't be a bad idea.
Yep, I still think that's good value personally.
Steve Rocky wants to know, is Brandon Ayuk the number 2 a wide receiver in San Francisco? Hell, he might be the number 1 right now. They don't have a lot of bodies. Some more talk today. Kyle Shanahan keeps telling us that he's optimistic or it's possible Deebo Samuel will be ready week 1. I remain skeptical. It's a Jones fracture. They're tricky injuries. He had surgery the last week, I believe, or right about then of June. They talked about a 10 to 16 week timetable. 10 weeks would be right about the start of the season, so I suppose it's possible. Deebo Samuel says that's what he's aiming for. The key is going to be if he opens the season on PUP. The problem for me with these wide receivers, and like Richie James won't be ready to go. Dante Pettis has been impressing the last few days, and probably the first time since 2 years ago when we all thought he was heading somewhere, and then last year he didn't. But it seems like there's one receiver at a time in San Francisco that I'd be interested in, not named George Kittle. And, I realize he's a tight end, but at least a pass catcher. So, they love him. They love Brandon Ayuk. They drafted him like they love him. They paid heavily. They think a lot of good things about him. So I would say right now, I would consider him the number 2, even when Deebo Samuel comes back. My question would be, is that how deep you want to go into this receiving core? I think I saw Wozniak say he liked him. Let me scroll up the chat a little ways. It's a hell of a
again, that's an excellent point you have with Kittle there. Is the number 2 receiver, what is that worth in your league? And, where do you take that guy? You may be excited you got a guy like that, but he may not really give you a lot of value.
Yeah, that would be my question. But clearly their investment in him, the things they've said about him, pretty much everything we've heard has been very positive. And he's playing pretty well in camp, so there's that as well. So that was a vague as hell answer. Try to be more specific. But also watching, just Alex Smith got in his first 9-on-9 session today, which is remarkable. I again remain skeptical because I'm old and mean-spirited and just skeptical by nature. But also, Dwayne Haskins and Kyle Allen looked horrible in practice today. Both of them had lousy showings. So Alex Smith out there moving around 9-on-9s is a big step forward for him. And man, if he, he is, I think one of the local reports called it a 1 in a million recovery. It is a 1 in a million recovery. So I hope the best for him, but I have still some concerns. Going to need some good offensive line play. Emil, Deshaun Watson has decided to join ranks with me, and he thinks Will Fuller is going to have an amazing season. I think his opinion is probably more important than mine. But so we all know the problem with Will Fuller, and I guess the injuries have been an issue, but they have not been an issue. They have not kept him from producing when he's on the field. So let's bring up the ADP on him. And
by the way, I think somebody said what round would you? I think you mean taking Brandon Ayuk. Just to answer that, he's going around the 12th round ADP in the high stakes.
I mean, there's a lot of guys in that same range I'd feel better about, including John Brown, because I'm a John Brown freak.
Yeah, I try and take him a little later.
Yeah, and I don't think you'll get him. I mean, I think the buzz has been really positive, so maybe you buy into that.
Fuller's going around the late sixth round in high stakes right now.
Yeah, I think in the rest of the world it's the 7th rounder or so, and so there were some numbers that I thought were interesting on Will Fuller, and I think it was who was it? I think it was Matthew Berry pointed it out. In his past 16 games with at least 7 targets, Fuller has 87 catches, 1,192 yards, and 8 touchdowns, which would have been wide receiver 7 last season. So, look, I'm not saying that he's going to be that. I'm just saying he can be that. And for the weeks that he's up and running, for the price I'm investing in him, I'm kind of okay with that. Anyone else feel differently than that?
Well, certainly he's your high-risk player. If you've got a percentage that you want to do high-risk, he's a high-risk guy. I'm just looking at his last 3 stats on our website, weekly stats for the last 3 years, and it looks like Swiss cheese with all the games he's been out. But I love the guy. I've always loved the guy, and I always try and get him. God, if he could just get enough games in, he could really, really be incredible, as you've pointed out.
William Gorel sounds like we think James Conner will rebound this year. 3rd round price tag seems pretty reasonable for the path to workload, and I do like that. And you're right, it's a fairly clear path. Again, Aditi Kikumbwala, you'll hear her if you're listening to be on Fantasy Dirt right now, or shortly. Is high on him too, but she talked about all the potential drawbacks. His health has been a problem. He's had a hard time staying healthy, but she also sees what I see, which is Mike Tomlin wants to stick with one guy as much as he can. They like Benny Snell, who has apparently, done the Le'Veon Bell thing, lean and mean and looking good, and has narrowed up. She says they like Anthony McFarland. I know my friend Sigmund Bloom over at Football Guys, not as high on Anthony McFarland. So, but those are the 3 backs of interest there. And I think Connor, assuming he has good health, is going to, get the Willie Parker treatment, and they will be running them wheels off him. And so I think that is pretty reasonable in 3rd round. There's a whole range of 3rd round guys. Any inside info on Trent Richardson? I don't know that there is. So I think there's a whole range of guys that are going kind of in that 3rd round at running back that kind of, you're just drafting for the workload. Let's see, where does that list start? I mean, so James Conner, actually it probably starts a little earlier. Aaron Jones, we're playing for the workload. I think, nobody's expecting 19 touchdowns. And then after that, Le'Veon Bell, or James Conner, playing for the workload. Le'Veon Bell, you're definitely playing for the workload because I don't see a ton of upside in that offense. But the workload is worth something, right? So beyond that, it's Todd Gurley, David Johnson, Leonard Fournette, Melvin Gordon. I think, there's where the clear path to workload ends. Jonathan Taylor after that. I think Jonathan Taylor is going to be the guy, but he's got to get past Marlon Mack. So there's, at least some concern there. But I think that little range of 5 or 6 guys Carson's my favorite of that group, but I think anyone in that group, you're basically drafting the workload or the anticipated workload anyway in the clear path. Okay. So Let's see what else we have here in the queue. Josh Allen. So I was looking today. Stephon Diggs, seems to still be going higher than I'm willing to pay for him. I mentioned John Brown as a guy that I like an awful lot that the rest of the world does not. Mostly, I think, because Stephon Diggs is there. Cole Beasley is there, got 100-plus targets. I don't see him getting that this year. But the reporting this week out of Buffalo has not been entirely positive on Josh Allen. So I think we draft him where we've been drafting him based on that rushing floor that he's kind of provided the last couple of years. Are you confident he'll have that still, Emil?
He did a lot last year. Off the top of my head, I can't remember how many, but he scored a lot. I'm a little worried about him. I had him like around 6 or 7 on my quarterback rankings. I've got him at 10 right now. Just a lot of things. I guess I'm excited about him, and emotionally would be cool. But at the same time, would I take Tom Brady over him right now? I mean, I've got Tom Brady at 11. I may even move Josh Allen down to 10, and I've got Wentz 9th. So I'm kind of losing my excitement about him because there's other guys like Brady who could outperform him that I can get a little bit later in the draft. Let me go look at his...
I'm bringing up his ADP. It seems like it seems like the ADP has fallen enough that maybe people are taking this into account. Or maybe the Zach Moss news is starting to kind of settle in on everybody that, hey, maybe he won't get all those rushing touchdowns he got before.
He had 9 rushing touchdowns, Josh Allen. 9 rushing touchdowns. I almost want to check the stat. It doesn't seem right. He only got 109 yards, so obviously a lot of it was in the 5-yard line. That's a high number. That's kind of looking like that's easy to come down to 4 or 5, and then you're going to he could get more passing yardage with Diggs, etc. I don't have him as high as I had before, around the 9th or 10th quarterback, which isn't bad. It's just he's dropped down my list.
Yeah, I liked him a heck of a lot last year. I don't have a lot of shares of him this year. I'm checking my ownership shares, and I don't have any of them in best ball this year, which seems like I should have.
It's funny, sometimes you get excited about somebody, then when you get into the drafts, and all of a sudden you realize when you get to Josh Allen or anybody, you skip them. And then after a few drafts, you're saying, I guess I don't believe myself. Maybe I ought to reevaluate my rankings.
So we had some other news today that was kind of interesting, variously interesting. A lot of guys nicked up. I guess we're going to do this for Justin. We'll do the quarterback situation in New England. The talk this week has been, Mike Reese threw it out there from ESPN, who is pretty well connected. I think it's probably silly to think it's not an accident that he threw this out. But he suggested maybe they would go with a platoon at quarterback. They need to see what they have as Stidham. Maybe Newton is a little slow to pick up on the offense, yet they still want to use him in some packages, etc. How much would that shade your feeling about the rest of the New England skill players? I mean, we're already seeing ADPs fairly low. Like Julian Edelman has kind of fallen off the radar for the most part. N'Keal Harry seems like a great late round value. We're all scared of the running backs not named James White at this point.
I think it's a reasonable thing to be concerned. Cam has come back from injury, and
Bill Belichick came out and said, yeah, it's something they would think about. So go ahead. I'm sorry.
Oh, yeah, of course, Bill loves that because now he puts everybody in the opposing teams. He loves to confuse the opponent. I don't think he really cares about us fantasy people. We kind of think he's bugging us, but he loves going into a game plan. He's looking for weaknesses of each opponent each week, and he'll do whatever it takes to win. And the next week, he'll do something completely different depending on the strengths and weaknesses of his other team. The Cam Newton, we don't know if he's perfect, if he's healthy enough to really play 16 games. Maybe he doesn't start out as a starter. So, wow, I mean, it's just chaos. And if he plays, like Jen said last night, that he's a runner inside the goal line. So Cam Newton could end up scoring some decent points for himself, not necessarily for the other skill players on the team.
Julian Edelman currently the 30th wide receiver off the board. I think we all feel like, hey, thanks for coming, Rob. Appreciate it, man. I mean, I guess the one impression is, and I've heard people talk about this, is, the Panthers always drafted those huge catch radius guys: Kelvin Benjamin, Brandon LaFell, Devin Funchess. And so what are they going to do? Well, Cam also threw to Christian McCaffrey a little bit, right? I mean, it's not like he can't hit the smaller receivers. So I wonder if we're not overlooking Julian Edelman where he's going right now. It seems like a reasonable value in round 7 still to me. But there are some later plays as well. Pedro Resto wants to know what round would we be willing to draft Deebo Samuels in a 1-point PPR. I'm not willing to draft him because he's going in round 8, and I'm not drafting that early, a guy that I think might only play half the season. But look, if you're confident, the reporting has all been positive. I mean, that's what you're going to have to pay. That seems like an awful lot of draft capital for the number 1 receiver in an offense that is not going to be very pass heavy. But look, he was very viable. They give him the ball you let him carry the football a lot. Just the health would be a big concern for me going in. Is he going to open the season on pup? That'd be of some concern.
7th or 8th round. That's a high value. You're having to put out some draft capital to get him on your roster.
Yeah, a little news here. Mike Garofalo reporting the Chiefs' Tyreek Hill's hamstring injury is minor, not a great concern. They'll probably play it safe. And also some bad news is Ron Rivera is consulted with a number of doctors and specialists. He has lymph node cancer, and doesn't sound like he's going to miss time. Let me just see what's going on with this. Shared the news with the team tonight. Says the cancer's in the early stages. And it sounds like he will go ahead and coach this year while he's getting treatment. So, thoughts with him. Man, what a hard run this guy's had coming in to coach a new team. Can't imagine all the issues he's had to deal with from the off-field to the on-field. Tough call. Early stages, treatable and very curable. So that's good news.
Well, that's good to hear.
All right, another question here. The only player he'll take from New England, Brian Larkin, has a comment, is their kicker in the last round. I think he may break into the top 3. Not the worst not the worst thing. Look, I see this. I mean, Sony Michel's down and heading for the double-digit rounds, and I mean, not without good reason. And the rest of the backfield seems shaky and hard to figure out. The quarterback situation is unknown and probably unknowable given their recent history and the way they handle things. So it's going to be tough. I'm really glad to hear that about Tyreek Hill. We've been seeing a number of guys dealing with hamstrings. Lamar Miller's in the mix, yes, James, and he's on the PUP list right now along with Sony Michel, but tore his ACL, I think it was last August, 3rd week of August, so he's about a year removed from that, so maybe he'll come off soon once they get him up to speed. But great, we have Tyreek Hill, we had DeAndre Hopkins dealing with the hamstring. He's back at practice. AJ Green. They have a scrimmage tomorrow in Cincinnati. He will not take part in that. So plenty of nicks and bruises. In a normal offseason, I'd be saying, good, put him in bubble wrap, set him on the side. I don't want to hear anything more from him. But in this offseason where we're not getting a lot of information, I'd like a little more information. It seems more likely that we'll get that if they're on the field, other than hearing that, yes, AJ Green is on the field without a helmet. Watching from the sidelines.
Now, have you mentioned Melvin Gordon's ribs?
I did. Rib injury. A lot of talk. Vic Fangio said today, the head coach, that it's hard to say if they will have a starter, right? That they may split so much that it's one of those situations where they don't actually have a starter so much as they just have a timeshare between he and Philip Lindsay. We might be overdrafting Melvin Gordon. I still, in the end, think he's the better back, but Lindsey's coming off a couple 1,000-yard seasons. How do you feel about that one, Emil?
I'm a little worried. He didn't miss much last year. Of course, he held out for 4 weeks, but back in 2018, he did miss several games, and he's been a little nicked up. Wow, I may have to reevaluate where I have him on my rankings. It just really annoys me for having 3 quality backs there, and here he is hurt again. That worries me. That makes me want to stay away from him a little bit, or draft him as a guy. If he falls to me, I'll take him. But if I don't want to draft him at his ADP right now.
It gets a little worrisome, when these situations are clouded. Adding to that, Gordon talking about having a hard time adjusting the altitude. Pretty sure that will happen. I don't think it's going to be a big issue. Wondering what we think about Dalvin Cook. Is gee whiz. I love him. I like any running back in a Gary Kubiak offense. He's the primary guy. I know there's some talk about his contract. He's going to play. The contract talks broke off, but he's still focused on week one. I have him ranked as my fourth running back. I'd be fine taking him that early. I just did in the last draft I did, where I had that pick. So have no problem doing that. I think he's in line for a huge workload. Do you think what he did last year, even though he was limited late in the season, put up huge numbers, very solid numbers?
And the contract talk kind of helps you because people get worried. Again, the thing we talked about at the beginning of the show, if he starts to slide as the 5th or 6th or 7th pick in the first round, and you can take advantage of that.
Yeah, definitely. And that's, we talked about it with some of the other players too, but don't be afraid to leverage when you hear some news that people, look, it's almost natural, right? Like, especially for fantasy owners, we tend to be like a school of fish. You throw that lure in the water and everyone chases it or run away from it, whichever it is. And that's what we see with these guys. I talked about getting Miles Sanders in the second round of a fifth. Will he play the whole season? Well, who? Well, I'm not sure. I guess you mean Cook? Well, I don't know. Will anyone play the whole season? I mean, yes. I mean, he wants to be an unrestricted free agent next year. It does not behoove him to say, I'm going to be a troublemaker and not play the whole season. Who's going to want to pay him all that money he wants? So should have plenty of motivation once he's on the field. I mean, will he get hurt? I don't know.
Maybe he's worried about his injury status, his potential.
Yeah, there's some legitimate concerns there. I don't think he's, it's been chronic injuries. He's been more chronically injured, and I think there's a difference there. It's been something every year. So I get that. I'm still paying, and I'll take the gamble on that. John Ross, James Bullock says, started out blazing last year. Does he warrant late round consideration in deep leagues? I think he does in best ball, because, hell, he might have that 200-yard game at some point. And we'll see what Joe Burrow does. This year is a little different if A.J. Green is back. So that's a little bit of concern. But I think in a deep league, he does warrant. And, yeah, Brian, if it is an injury concern, I mean, look, man, it's a contact sport. I mean, running back's going to get in 25 car collisions a game. So, yes, injuries are a concern. Not enough to keep me from drafting him with the 4th pick overall. But would understand. I tend to be a little more injury agnostic than most in this regard because for that reason, you just, sitting here and pretending that someone is or isn't going to get hurt just is difficult. I know there are guys that we say, oh, he's hurt all the time.
Yeah, you can get Madison, though, super late, and he can be productive.
Yeah, and I get it. So I just was checking his ADP because we were talking about handcuffs. And let's see what the ADP is still reasonable. Like, so we were comparing with like Kareem Hunt, as a 5th rounder. That's too high for me. So I was kind of looking at Madison. I think it was 9th round. That seems a little more reasonable.
He's around around the 9th round.
Yeah, I hate paying the premium, but in his case, it's 8-11. So I think that would be fair. I think that's a fair price, especially given the offense. Look, Gary Kubiak's offense, we can go all the way back to his time in Denver. And we can see what he did with Terrell Davis. We can see what he did with Ruben Druins. We can see what he did with Mike Anderson. We could go to Houston and see what he did with Dominic Davis and Steve Slayton and an undrafted guy named Arian Foster. I mean, he went to Baltimore. We saw what happened. It's over and over. So it's been pretty repeatable. I think that seems like whatever running back is starting that offense is someone I'd be fine playing. So, yeah, definitely handcuffed if injuries are concerned for you. And don't be afraid to reach up around, go in the 8th round. I've seen him go, that early in some drafts, Madison. So Ted Cox would like to know if we would snag Lamar Jackson 2nd, 3rd round or wait on Dak, Watson, or Wilson. I think it depends on how your draft is playing out. Maybe it depends a little bit on where you're drafting in the 2nd round. We were talking about it earlier. If you're drafting first or, early in that round and you get a really solid play that you're really confident in, you can come back around, usually get Jackson, likely get him there towards the end of that 2nd round, come back around and get another high-end player in the 3rd round. I'm fine with that. I mean, I want to have some shares of Lamar Jackson, and I do in best ball because I'm in a lot of drafts. I mean, if I was only in one draft, it would be a harder, it would be more of a decision for me. I think getting a little value early at running back or wide receiver with that second pick or third pick, and then waiting for Dak. I just got him in the 6th, 7th round in some
That's
drafts.
really good value right there.
I think that's great value. And, he was actually, quarterback 2 last year, maybe likely because Mahomes was hurt, but he was right up there. So one thing I would do, Ted, is go into your commissioner software and just take a look at the average weekly scoring using your scoring position from last season, and just kind of look at what guys are doing weekly. And that kind of tells you that kind of gives you a clear-cut indication of the tiers, and it tells you when you need to draft these guys. And I think you'll find, Lamar Jackson was off the charts. He was close to 30 points a game. But everyone else was down to that, closer to 20 point per game range. And it was probably a narrower band, the value there was much tighter than you would expect. So go take a look at that, and maybe you'll find something. We have a couple minutes left here before we call it a night. Thanks, Brian. We'll be here tomorrow, Friday, at 3 p.m. Eastern time. Same kind of thing. We do this every weekday, Monday, Wednesday, and Friday at 3 p.m. Eastern. Tuesday and Thursday, we're doing it at 8 p.m. Eastern. We'll have some mock drafts in this spot. We'll do more questions. Hit the website, footballdiehards.com. If you're not a subscriber and you want to see what we're all about, use the footballdiehards.com/free trial to see what we're all about. We think you'll like the product once you've done it. We've been doing this about 30 years, a little over 30 years. So we think the fact that we've been around tells you a little something. This is a tough business, and not everyone makes it that long. Not everyone makes it very long. If you do just want to go subscribe, use the promo code Diehards to get a 15% discount. Our magazines, the Fantasy Football Pro Forecast, is available for sale on the site. The Football Diehards magazine, 20th anniversary edition, also available. They're available on newsstands as well. So if you're walking around the stores and you see them, grab one. And if you get that, you get a little code that'll get you into the website and get you access for a while, and then you can buy up. My Fantasy GM going to be a great tool you want to use this year. Marries your roster information with our technology and rankings. You can manage your waiver wire moves, optimize lineups, all kinds of great stuff. It'll be really helpful for you. So one last question here. Emil Beard, third round. Emil Beard, third round. All right,
what?
Man. I'm not sure what James meant by it needs more substance. Maybe the beard.
Yeah, beard, I guess, yeah.
The third round beard.
Yeah.
All right, everybody.
I'll take that as a compliment.
Everyone have a great night. Thanks for coming, G. Hope to see you again. And watch for your emails. Hit the subscribe button here on the YouTube channel to make sure you get notifications on your phone or other devices because we're here every day. See you tomorrow.